Good morning and welcome to NYSE TV Live. I'm Kristen Scholler here at the New York Stock Exchange. Well, we're just about a half hour away from the opening bell after the S&P 500 touched a new record high yesterday. Better than expected earnings and Trump optimism following his second inauguration have lifted stocks of late. While potential tax cuts, deregulation, and solid economic fundamentals are at play. And NYSE-listed GE Aerospace does report earnings today. It's a $200 billion plus company listed at the stock exchange. And it precedes a liquid natural gas producer, Venture Global, set to raise $1.8 billion in an IPO tomorrow. Let's take a look at what's on tap in today's show. As the World Economic Forum is underway in Davos, Switzerland, we'll hear from an industry titan on the ground about the future of news. Stagwell CEO will join me live. Plus, dating app Grindr recently launched a new product. Its chief executive joined my colleague Trinity Chavez to share the details. And with artificial intelligence still front and center, the CEO of a $1 billion plus startup called Imbue joined me for what is emerging from this space at the forum in Davos. But first, as we await the market open, let's turn to equities as we typically do this time. Joining me now is Youngyu Ma, Chief Investment Officer at BMO Wealth Management. Youngyu, great to have you on the show and welcome.
Thanks, Kristen. Great to be here.
What do you make of this market as the S&P is within striking distance of an all-time high?
Yeah, the market definitely has a good dose of optimism and is looking forward to a growth trajectory and the earnings season, which I think there's still a lot of optimism that can come in strongly this year and really underpin what is strong fundamentals in the economy and healthy productivity numbers to really have a favorable year this year.
What are the fundamentals that you see that show this market is in a good place?
Yeah, the fundamentals are important because when we take a step back and think about how much strength that underlies the economy and underlies the market, really we want to look at things like consumer spending, corporate spending, the leverage, or in this case, lack of leverage that both consumers and corporations have. We think those are very healthy fundamentals. And yes, there could be volatility along the way, but when we see that buffer, that gives us confidence that we'll be able to ride out the volatility and the economy can remain stable along with the markets.
Tariffs, of course, something in focus, whether or not they come to fruition. We have heard from market participants that they do see it as a negotiating tactic for President Trump. How do you view tariffs and their potential impact on stocks?
We do think tariffs are a wild card this year. Yes, we primarily believe they'll be used as a negotiating tool, but we also think President Trump is willing as a second choice to enact tariffs as part of a broad-based policy and as a tool to bring jobs back. And sometimes you'll reach negotiated deals, but sometimes deals might be harder to reach and it could be a bumpy path. So we think that trajectory might not be a straight line with tariffs. We do think it's more negotiation than punitive tariffs, but we could get a little bit of both.
Of course, there has been a focus on yields of late and rates, what it means for stocks in other areas of the market. Not necessarily something front and center the past few days, but what do our viewers need to know about yields as it pertains to performance?
Yeah, that's the good news, that over the past week or so, yields have cooled off, long-term treasury yields, because we did get that good inflation data last week. But where does pain start to set in the markets? Where does there start to be concern? That's probably the 10-year treasury yield breaching 5% in a very meaningful way. We think actually the economy and the markets can digest higher yields than we have today, but if they were to run up significantly, that would inject a bit of caution in the markets for sure.
Volatility, is that your expectation for the year?
Yeah, we probably are looking at a lot more volatility this year than we had in the past year. But we're looking for opportunities amid that volatility. We're not running away from volatility, looking to bail out or pull the trigger at a moment's notice. Really looking to see given that we have those strong underlying fundamentals, and this is where we come back to fundamentals is really an important consideration, the market and the economy can probably withstand a lot of turbulence this year. So we believe that amid this volatility, there'll be opportunities that arise, and investors should be patient this year for those opportunities.
And what do you see as an opportunity? What is a moment in time where someone should consider putting some money to work?
Well, for people with cash on the sidelines, we actually recommend more of a dollar cost averaging type of approach this year because we do expect some volatility. But even amid that type of approach, there's a way you can accelerate some of that dollar cost averaging if you see a pullback in the market. Say if you get a 5 to 10% pullback, maybe accelerate the positions that someone takes in the market. So what exactly is going to lead to those opportunities could be tariffs, could be something else, but we do think there'll be opportunities this year.
And in terms of what the opportunities might be, we see the World Economic Forum underway in Davos, Switzerland. Certainly artificial intelligence, technology continuing to take center stage. How do you view that sector?
Well, we really like the tech sector. We think it's going to continue to be a very strong driver, that productivity trends that come out of AI are going to really be healthy for the economy and help companies maintain high profits. And this is really just the beginning. We still think we're in the very, very early stages of AI development. We think there's a long way to go, a long build out of the energy infrastructure as well that's going to be needed to fund that or power that. So we think these trends are here to stay, they're long lasting, and a lot of money is going to go into them.
And in terms of the Federal Reserve, we're going to hear from the Fed next week, believe it or not, in another decision. Markets, by and large, not anticipating any movement on rates, but of course, they'll be listening closely to what the Fed chair might have to say. What do you think the market needs to hear from the Fed chair next week?
I think the market would really gravitate toward and take favorably if the Fed gives commentary about what it sees as the trajectory. For example, if we get another few months of favorable inflation data with the labor market staying around where it is, could then the Fed be back on track for more cuts, say, in the late spring? I think everyone knows we're not getting cuts right away, but the market would really like to see that this year has a trajectory for more cuts. So indications in that regard, I think, would be taken well.
And in terms of what else is on your radar, what our viewers need to know, Young Yu, what would you tell them?
Well, let's see how earnings season plays out. You know, what the companies give as anecdotes in terms of how they're implementing AI, the benefits they're seeing from that. We think we're in the early stages, so we're not going to get hard data at this point. But those early anecdotes in terms of companies seeing cost savings, implementing AI technology are going to be important to keep those underlying drivers of the market and that underlying confidence sustained.
IPOs, anticipating an opening up of the IPO market this year. We saw Flowco, an energy equipment provider, tap the capital markets last week here at the stock exchange, was warmly received by investors on that first day of trade and in pricing the night before. Expectations that Venture Global, an LNG company, will debut tomorrow. What does this signal about the market?
Well, we do think this is a positive environment for IPOs. Now, whether or not we're going to have a gangbuster year for IPOs, that's probably a bit of an overstatement, overly high expectation. But we do think it'll be favorable as long as the markets remain strong. These IPOs, the ones that have good fundamentals, should be well received. So that should be another thing that benefits the market sentiment this year.
All right, Young Yu Ma, he's a Chief Investment Officer at BMO Wealth Management. Young Yu, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
All right, well, stay with us because on the other side of this break, the CEO of Stagwell, a network of marketing agencies, will join me to discuss its latest Future of News study. He is live in Davos. That's next.
So Brightwave is an investment research platform that uses artificial intelligence to help asset managers understand more about the markets than is humanly possible.
And what would you say that makes you unique, though, from others who are currently on the market?
A number of things. So we have an incredible engineering team. So for myself, I established and led the language model engineering practice at Databricks. Created the first language model to demonstrate that open source technologies could exhibit the kinds of behaviors we've come to expect from ChatGPT. My co-founder is the former CTO of a federally regulated derivatives exchange and clearinghouse. It is.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
And his first deep learning patent was filed in 2018. We've got engineers from Meta and Instagram, award-winning research engineers, commercial team from UBS and McKinsey and Goldman Sachs. It's a a stacked bench, and it has allowed us to execute on very, very difficult technical problems. If you think about the number of factors that are relevant to an investment decision, it exceeds the limits of a person's ability to keep it in mind simultaneously. And we see an opportunity with language models to create a technology that allows a person to connect the dots across millions of documents and see a story that nobody else has noticed in order to identify a mispriced asset.
And you decided to come to Money 2020 this year because you had a major announcement about your Series A funding.
That's right. Yeah. We have announced a $15 million Series A, preempted by Decibel Partners, one of our seed stage investors, and including participation from Omers Ventures. We're extremely excited about this. This brings our total funding in the past 17 months to $21 million. We've quadrupled our revenue since our Series Seed announcement in June or July, forget exactly when. And it's happened quickly. We've seen vigorous traction, brisk demand from across financial services.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler here in studio at the Stock Exchange. As the World Economic Forum is underway in Davos, Switzerland, thousands of leaders from around the world are convening to discuss collaboration in the intelligent age. And this year, that is the theme. Well, at the center of conversations in the Swiss Alps is Stagwell, a network of marketing agencies that recently released its latest Future of News study. And joining me now to discuss its findings, including the pulse of C-suite and board directors, is Mark Penn. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Stagwell and is in Davos. Mark, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning to you and good afternoon here.
Good afternoon where you are. We so appreciate you joining. And I do want to dive in because your latest Future of News study was released just before the World Economic Forum. How has it driven conversations on the ground this week?
Oh, I think it's driven some good conversations about brands not understanding that many of their marketing departments have been blacking out news when it comes to the marketing and advertisements, creating a vicious cycle where news is demonetized and good journalism as a result is not supported. And so the study shows that, really your typical CEO is a news junkie, checking the news repeatedly every day and wants his marketing department or her marketing department to, in fact, really advertise on the news. It's a social responsibility, we think, for companies to advertise on sports, entertainment, and news.
Mm-hmm. I do want to dive into the key findings here, Mark, and how they might shape the future after the forum.
Well, if you look at the general outlook of the CEOs, really 90% are following news closely. You look at 70 or 80% saying they should be advertising in news. And you're looking at the CEOs generally saying that they think that the economic outlook is going to be good. They are truly enthusiastic about AI, but they're also worried about the negative potential consequences of AI run amok. Misinformation and other negative elements of AI are also on the minds of CEOs here who really want to see AI be deployed for the advancement of the humankind, as well as here, I think, worried about what it could do to us.
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you how your Future of News initiative is aiming to reinvigorate the relationship between news and marketing for good.
Well, we're really finding tremendous uptake of this initiative. The news industry's come together with a lot of brands, realizing that this brand safety issue had run amok and had become censorship. 40% of the articles of even the New York Times were not getting advertisements because a layer of tech was bouncing out advertisements from articles that had any words of controversy whatsoever, as though brands were going to be held responsible for what's going on in the Middle East if their ad appeared in the Middle East. The whole thing was nonsense. And we did a big study that proved that advertisements work equally well in placement in news versus sports versus entertainment, and a smart marketer will be looking at all three. We at Stagwell place about 5 billion of ads, and we're trying to get our clients and clients generally to find out what's going on here, and to look in their organization to see if news is being unreasonably or unfairly blacked out of their marketing.
How do business leaders, Mark, view the importance of news media when it comes to advertising?
Oh, they're really, as you go through the study, they're enthusiastic about that. That's where 70–80% of the CEOs said, look, their organization should support advertising on news. Look, it's really very simple that if news can't get advertisements, then it has to go subscription or it doesn't exist at all and is replaced by social media posts. But it's socially responsible for companies to advertise on news. And the CEOs that we polled from the Harris poll, one of our various companies, really came through and said it's really important that we all band together and support that. And you see that here at Davos, where the CEOs are really concerned that people get not just any information, and definitely not misinformation, but really quality journalistic information. And I think the CEOs here are generally behind that.
I want to hear more about the consensus among leaders, certainly that this study covered, Mark, when it comes to brand safety, particularly placement of ads next to content that could potentially be controversial.
Well, look, I mean, you see, I think that's where we got 57% saying that brand safety as an issue has just been overblown. I think that what happened is, while there are many things, for example, would Boeing want an ad next to a story on a plane crash? Oh, probably not. So it started out well-intentioned, but then as time went on, more and more words would get added. And then what would really happen is that virtually, half of all news stories and quality news stories would get blocked out. And what we really found was it didn't matter. Nobody thinks if your ad appears in a news story about what's going on in Israel, that you back Hamas, okay? Your brand is not tarnished. And in fact, by not advertising on news, your brand can be tarnished because you should be out there saying, we support quality news, information, and journalism. And that should be a plank of the social responsibility of every major corporation.
Mark, my final question to you is how Stagwell is integrating this initiative, the Future of News, into programming throughout the forum, knowing that we do have a bit of time left in Davos.
Yes, no, we've gone to the panels. We are distributing the survey. We are, I think, getting really great pickup. We had several forums with and dinners with groups of marketers and groups of people from the media industry and journalists. So journalists, media executives, CMOs, all of them, I think, are getting together behind this effort. And at Stagwell, we really, as the challenger marketing service company, really see this initiative as one of the things that differentiates us, because we think marketers have to do things differently and not by rote.
Mark Penn, CEO of Stagwell, joining us live on the ground at the World Economic Forum. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristen.
All right, well, stay with us because up next we'll talk about the latest in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. We'll have more on the other side.
So, Colleen, you joined Planet Fitness as CEO in June. So tell me about your first 6 months.
It's been a very fast first 6 months. I really leaned into spending time in our clubs and getting to know our franchisees, talking with our club team members and seeing how our members utilize our clubs. I call it feet on the street. It's been really insightful. And we've also worked on our strategic imperatives and kind of codified our roadmap for our growth ambition.
So tell me about your growth strategy and vision for the future of Planet Fitness.
Our 4 strategic imperatives really start with refining our brand promise and then making sure we pull that through in our marketing messaging. We're also leaning into member experience to make sure that we're connecting with our membership and enhancing our relationship with our members and delivering a format both inside and outside the clubs that's most meaningful for them and is going to enable them to accomplish their fitness goals. And then we lean in on format optimization and our equipment mix. And that's making sure that we've got the right mix of equipment for how our members want to utilize our clubs today. And when we get all of that right, and more thoughtful about unit economics and build cost for our franchisees, it enables us to turn up the afterburners on growth.
Now, how will you redefine your brand strategy and communicate it effectively?
We're growing stronger together, and we're all strong on this planet. We're seeing across generational cohorts a focus on utilization of strength in our members' workout routines and our prospective member workout routines. So as we've done consumer testing and consumer surveys, as well as how we've seen our members utilizing our clubs, we've recognized the opportunity to kind of shift our mix a bit and have a greater complement of strength in our clubs.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to NYSE TV Live. I'm Kristen Scholler here in the studio. Well, as technology remains in the spotlight, especially amid a new administration, I do want to bring in my colleague, Trinity Chavez, with more. Trinity, good morning.
Hey, Kristen, good morning. That's right. AI and machine learning are transforming everything from cybersecurity to the economy. But with opportunities are coming big challenges. Skyrocketing costs, workflow demands, as well as the risk of market consolidation are all in consideration. Joining us to break it all down is David Bruschler. He is the technical director and head of AI and machine learning at security at NCC Group. David, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, with AI becoming increasingly central to cybersecurity, how would you explain the importance of AI and machine learning in addressing today's complicated cybersecurity threat landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a misconception that AI is brand new to the security space. But in reality, this is just another stepping stone in the path that we've been following for the last 10 to 20 years. Machine learning has been critically important for threat detection, behavioral analysis, and pattern evaluation. And what modern language models equip us to do is evaluate context-based text information. So looking at logs, digesting the content rather than just the raw data that's been presented to these systems. And it's allowing our security teams to accelerate their threat detection process and to respond more quickly as well.
And why do you believe that investment in AI computation is likely to accelerate this year? And what does that mean for businesses aiming to stay competitive?
In 2025, agentic AI is the new buzzword. And all that means is that we're taking these systems similar to ChatGPT, these language models, and equipping them with brand new functionality that now they have not just the ability to respond to users, but also they can run tasks to accomplish goals. And so businesses are trying to catch on to this trend and implement this technology into their application platforms. And so these new agentic functionalities will allow them to operate autonomously, to fulfill user requests, and to interact with other components. And because this provides so much richness to the user experience, the industry is seeing investment pour in to add these capabilities to production systems.
You know, President Trump just recently took office. You know, he is in day 4 of his new administration, his new cabinet. What role do you think will this play in the larger, broader scope of this landscape with the new administration?
Well, the Trump administration has already signaled that he is going to be continuing the Biden administration's AI-friendly policy. In fact, just yesterday, we saw him with industry leaders begin the Stargate project, which is a $100 to $500 billion private sector investment into the AI computational capacity. And so I think that we're going to see the Trump administration continue encouraging investment, pouring in government resources wherever feasible into continuing American AI dominance. That said, we have seen some interesting policy decisions, such as the rescinding of the AI Safety Act, which was signed by the Biden administration. But I don't think that this is necessarily a signal that the Trump administration is pulling back from AI, but rather that they're trying to remove roadblocks in the way of the industry moving forward.
And given the high cost associated with AI implementation, how can smaller organizations or startups compete with the larger companies in responding to government proposals?
When it comes to smaller organizations, obviously they don't have the same access to capital that your mega corporation might have access to. So they're not able to construct their own data centers, purchase thousands and thousands of computational units. But they can use the resources available to them, like leveraging grants by the United States government, by stating their case whenever lobbying opportunities present themselves, and using available cloud resources to promote the products that they're already building. So I would encourage them to show off the things that they've built and maximize the visibility into their platforms to demonstrate that these smaller players still have a lot to bring to the table.
Now, David, we have about 60 seconds left here. I do want to get your take on how you think government structure policies can encourage a broader distribution of AI resources and ensure that innovation is not restricted to organizations with large capital reserves.
Sure. So last week in the Biden administration's one of their final executive orders ensured that in that order, it was written that smaller organizations would have the ability to come together and partner with the federal government to collect their capital and build data centers on federal land with the intention of maximizing the usage of green energy when it comes to producing the energy we need to run these massive computational centers. So I think that partnerships are an excellent strategy, and I think that pouring into the open source community is one of the best things that small businesses can do that will push everyone forward. And the government should be promoting that as an excellent means of ensuring that our overall knowledge base continues to increase rather than siloing the expertise within these mega corporations.
Well, thank you so much for all of those key insights, David Brochler. He is Technical Director and Head of AI and Machine Learning at NCC Group. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Now, stay tuned. We have a lot more to get to, but first, we're going to take a short break.
How has this partnership propelled Snowflake's growth and deepened its ties to the broader financial and technology communities?
Oh, you know this. The New York Stock Exchange is the most storied stock exchange ever on the planet, and we're thrilled and honored to be on it. But there's also a very deep collaboration between the firms. It's at the level of us being the data platform for ICE and for the New York Stock Exchange, and being an important distribution mechanism for all of the amazing data that the NYSE wants to share with its customers and partners. We get a lot of great feedback about where Snowflake should evolve from Lynn and her team. And things like the tree lighting and the judging or the icing on the cake that demonstrate how closely the companies work with each other to partner, but just as importantly, create success for all of our giant customers. It's a deep partnership that I'm very, very grateful for. I tell people that AI is already magical because these language models can do things like understand fluid language, like the language you and I are speaking, and make sense of it, extract context from it, and do that effortlessly. We knew that how people are going to consume information was going to be changed forever. Just like, back when the first smartphones came, most people in the world kind of simultaneously realized that there was a before and an after, that everybody was going to have these amazing devices with them. I think we're going to think about AI the same.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live. I'm Trinity Chavez at the New York Stock Exchange. Now, for those of you who are just tuning in, we have the Secret Service here at the New York Stock Exchange to ring the opening bell. They are going to open up the U.S. equity markets in just about 2 minutes to kick off trading for the day. For more on what we can expect after the U.S. equity markets open up, I do want to bring in my colleague, Kristen Scholler. Kristen, what can we expect after trading kicks off?
Trinity, that's exactly right. So I'm excited to see that opening bell, of course, honoring members of the Secret Service. And we know the stock market, as it always is, will be in focus here with all sorts of traders down there on the floor preparing for the open, just a minute away as we speak. Earnings, economic data, two key elements in focus. And after what had been some choppiness around the new year, has since really kind of ironed itself out, certainly in the wake of President Donald Trump's second inauguration on Monday. Investors do like his policies of deregulation that is expected, potential tax cuts on the way, as well as no universal tariffs imposed just yet, Trinity. So a lot of storylines for us to continue covering here.
And after the trading officially kicks off, you're going to actually be speaking with the head of equity strategy at Wisdom Tree. What can we expect from that interview?
Yes, I am looking forward to my interview with Wisdom Tree. There's a live look at the podium as we await the opening bell. Again, the U.S. Secret Service set to celebrate the opening of the markets alongside Kevin Fitzgibbons. All right, we are off to the races here at the stock exchange. The market officially opened for trade as the Secret Service just opened equities. And joining me now remotely for more on this market is Jeff Weniger, head of equity strategy at Wisdom Tree. Jeff, great to have you on the show this morning. And what is on your radar when it comes to stocks?
Well, thanks for having me. I saw that dog on the trading floor had a pink hat on. It was somebody's having more fun than the two of us. But yeah, look, I mean, this is a broad bull market that continues. It looked like it was getting shaky there for 3 or 4 weeks. I think we were going to maybe sell the news of this inauguration. But basically, every sector in the market is in general bull mode, which was not necessarily the case last year, where energy and healthcare were pretty weak. Now those are kind of off to the races as well. You have a little bit of a market rotation of late. Industrials, materials, you do have that crude oil price rising. So it seems like it's a cyclical recovery type play.
Certainly, markets will be tuned into what we hear from Fed Chair Jerome Powell next week. But amid earnings, economic data, the World Economic Forum, the inauguration of President Trump for a second time, there has been no shortage of news events for us to cover. I want to get your take in terms of the Fed outlook and how it might have evolved since its last meeting in December.
Yeah, and look, the other thing about the Fed is that we're getting a lot of inbounds at Wisdom Tree from advisors saying, well, what are you going to do if the Fed should hike? Now, that's not the view at Wisdom Tree, but it's in the conversation, and that's something that's a little intriguing. And I think that that's the reality, is that we are now in this world here where mid 4% Fed funds rate may be the lay of the land for some time to continue. And remember as well, we have the Bank of Japan meeting happening today and tomorrow. So we should get a hike out of them. I think that that's going to be another non-event, materially different, I would say, from the BOJ meeting of last summer.
You know, it's interesting because as the S&P 500 sits right near a record high at the open, down just 0.2%, but again, a very strong run, up more than 50% in the past 2+ years since its bottom. What are the storylines that will drive the markets ahead, Jeff?
Well, I think one of the issues is with the S&P, to just take that gauge as a bench, is that, I was tweeting the other day with the CAPE ratio truly is remarkably high. And so you have this valuation headwind. It's akin to really the fourth quarter of 21. We know that 2022 was not a good year for stocks. The issue, of course, is with valuation, you can't end up using it for a 3 or 6 or 12 month outlook. But I think that the next 5 or 10 years could be something that'll be materially different in terms of just struggling to get big gains in markets. One of the things that I would note here is nobody wants to touch European equities, but European equities have been getting a little bit of love. So maybe in the next few years, it could be something like an international diversification. Get into Europe, get into Japan, get into India, and dare I say, maybe even China. That's another one nobody wants to touch.
Yeah. Emerging markets, developed markets abroad, the U.S., of course. We know the U.S. has been the best house on the block, certainly undervalued perhaps on the international space. How do you weigh those when looking at a portfolio as we start 2025?
Well, you can look at relative valuations. I mean, it's just if you want to pick any of those off the top of the list, we do a lot of Japan work at Wisdom Tree, so that would be an example of one where the market has rallied. I mean, we got the Nikkei up near 40,000 at this point. It had a good 2 or 3 years there. It's been chopping sideways for about 6 months or so. But you take a Wisdom Tree style index on Japan, you're looking at 12 times forward earnings with actually several nice catalysts for that. You put that up against a 22 times forward multiple, and you compare that to history, that 10-point gap between the U.S. and Japan, and it's wide. It's notably wide. And so we'll see if some of those catalysts for Japan, like basically the retirement program expansion that they're doing there, we will also see the ability to engage hostile takeovers, that type of thing. If that'll catalyze the Nikkei deep into the 40,000s, I think it will.
Interesting. Let's talk more about the U.S. dollar, because amid the turning of the calendar year, we had seen that dollar come back into focus just based on how robust the U.S. economy has been, especially relative to its peers, as we just discussed there. How could that impact the market?
Well, this is one where we think that we are in the consensus, and that is okay. You always want to scratch your head a little bit when you're a dollar bull and everyone else is, and that certainly is the way it feels right now. But it's okay. It's okay. The trends remain in force. You do have a situation where, aside from the Brits, it is the United States where you can get the most yield in the developed world. So there's major yield gaps between, let's say, treasuries and bonds, or treasuries and JGBs. And so that is a dollar strength thesis. And look, we are getting the known quantity here. We are going to get tariffs. We had in the last, 48, 72 hours, a lot of insinuations of tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China as expected. These are the things of dollar strength.
Jeff, we so appreciate you joining. A lot to get to this morning. Jeff Weniger is head of equity strategy at Wisdom Tree. Thank you again.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone, well, stay with us, because up next, we're going to hear from the Chief Executive Officer of Grindr, a dating app, about its new product launch. We'll have more on the other side.
Orbit is a space logistic company. Actually, we have been the first space logistic company in the world, a pioneer. What does it mean? Space logistics for us means taking care of customer assets in space, so satellites.
But what you're describing, it can't be easy. So talk to me more about how you go about optimizing in-orbit services while also reducing costs for your clients.
You can consider the launch vehicle, the rocket, as a bus, leaving each passenger at the terminus. Our satellite, our orbital transfer vehicle, that's the technical name, is released at the terminus together with other passenger. But our satellite has on board third-party passengers, small satellites on behalf of other companies. And if the rocket is a bus, we are Uber, taking each passenger to their respective home, which is the target orbit. They could do that on their own, which with traditional methods takes 6 to 10 months, thus wasting 1/3 on 1/4 of their operational life. We can do that in much lower time. So the result for the end user is getting to revenues earlier and extending the operational life of their asset.
There has been increasing demand when it comes to the utilization of space-based technologies. Talk to me about how D-Orbit is positioning itself from a business standpoint to keep up with the growing demand.
Besides the traditional standard services, we now see a big demand for something new, which is cloud computing in orbit. The quick, immediate need of
Now, Grindr is stepping into 2025 with big plans, unveiling its latest innovations at the company's first ever product day. From enhancing user experiences to introducing new features designed to foster inclusivity and connection, Grindr is aiming to redefine what it means to engage with its platform in the coming year. And I recently spoke to the CEO, George Arison, all about it. Check it out. Grindr is stepping into 2025 with big plans, unveiling its latest innovations at the company's first ever product day. From enhancing user experiences to introducing new features designed to foster inclusivity and connection, Grindr is aiming to redefine what it means to engage with its platform in the coming year. To talk more about this, I am joined now by George Arison. He is the Chief Executive Officer at Grindr. Good morning, George.
Good morning. Good to talk to you.
It's great to have you on the show today. I want to talk to you about your inspiration and how you came up with this idea of hosting Grindr's first ever product day, and how does it reflect the company's vision for 2025?
Well, yeah, happy to chat about that. So Airbnb hosts a product day, and this was kind of, ours was inspired by them. So it was great to see them do that on a regular basis. We had an investor day in June and talked through our product vision for the next 3 years at that meeting, which was very well received by investors and users as well. Historically, I don't think we've done as good of a job as we should at telling users what all the changes in the product are that are coming. And as a result, we're not getting as much user engagement on some of the features. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to start of the year to both update on all the things that we had shipped last year, and also talk about all the things that we're going to build this year that we think are very user focused. One of the things that we hear from users a lot is that there's not as much innovation in the product as I would like to see. I think this year we're definitely doing a lot more than we had ever done. And so giving people a heads up on that, and then hopefully getting a lot more engagement from them on those features was the opportunity we wanted to take as the year started.
Can you talk to me more about exactly what you highlight, some of the most exciting product innovations or updates that were announced during Product Day?
Yeah, we've been talking for about a year now about how AI will change the product, and not just Grindr, but all dating products everywhere. And I think in what we highlighted yesterday, you are now seeing a lot of the AI features coming through. So for example, we already have a product in testing in a few places called Summaries, which takes users' chats and creates a summary of those chats. A lot of our users spend a ton of time chatting. Grindr generates an incredible number of chats in any given day between users. And oftentimes people then kind of forget what the history is and have to restart that conversation from scratch. And so Chat Summaries allows you to not have to do that and say, okay, with this person, this is what you talked about. These are the key things about him that you might remember, kind of as a recollection for you to restart the conversation. A second feature that we are really psyched about is what we are, for now, calling the A-List. That's a temporary name. We'll have a brand name for it in the coming months, which will actually create almost like a second list of favorites for you, but through AI, as people that you have spent some time talking to, but that we think are really good matches for you, and you should be re-engaging. This will be particularly helpful for people who travel. So you might have talked to people, say, in New York, when you were last in New York, and then you kind of lost them in your inbox and don't really remember who they are. And then you're back in New York 6 months later. The A-List will bring those people to the forefront for you and say, hey, you spent a lot of time talking to these people when you were in New York. Why don't you take an opportunity to reconnect with them? Connect it to the chat summaries, telling you, hey, these are the things you talked to them about last time you were in New York. So those are two things I'm super psyched about. The A-List concept, the founder of Grindr, Joel Simkai, wanted back in 2009, but obviously technology was not there at that point, and now we can actually do that, and I'm really psyched about that.
And Grindr has always been the platform for LGBTQ plus connections. So how do these 2025 releases further promote inclusivity and accessibility for your global audience?
Yeah, Grindr is almost completely and exclusively a product for gay and bi men. That's kind of the core user base. Probably over 98% of our users fall into that category of people. And we're in 190 countries, and territories all over the world. There are very few places in the world where Grindr does not operate. I think a core thing for me since I joined Grindr nearly 2.5 years ago now has been that our users really love the product. They spend over an hour with the product a day. But we are not as world-class of a product as we can be, given where technology is today. And so we've been on a big push to try to get our tech stack to a place where we could actually innovate in ways that would make us a world-class product, to be a product that our users deserve. And that's very much what I think this year we'll strive to do. Now, I don't think we'll be done in 1 year. This will be a multi-year project. But we want a product that feels as good as any other great product out there, because our users really deserve that. And they've not really had that from us or from anybody else, frankly, really ever before.
And George, safety and privacy, they're obviously top priorities in the digital space. What advancements are being introduced to protect users while fostering an authentic connection?
Yeah, totally. So privacy is something that really matters to Grindr users in a really significant way. This is not to say that other products don't care about privacy. Obviously they do, but for us it's a particularly important criteria. And the reason is that we have people who live in places that are still very challenging for people who are gay or bi, right? Governments that are either legally making your life miserable or come after you even though legally there are no challenges to you being gay, but it's very hard to be accepted, or you live around people who make it really hard for you to be accepted. And that's true, obviously, in a lot of places outside of the United States where there are laws that are targeting gay people, right? In over 60 countries, it's still illegal to be gay, or even in the US or other developed countries where there are communities where people still feel like they have to be discreet about themselves for a variety of reasons. And so we really focus on privacy, and everything we do is privacy first. So for example, with any of the AI features that I talked about, we give users a lot of control about whether those features are allowed or not allowed. Or in location sense, if you don't want to have your location shown, in our unlimited tier, we allow you to actually not show your location if that's what you prefer to do, while still surfing the grid if that's what you prefer. And so privacy is really critical to Grindr and will always continue to be something that we really strive to focus on. And it's something that our users really care about in a very significant way.
Well, thank you so much, George. It was a pleasure having you on the show today. We look forward to having you back on soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Now we have a lot more to get to, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
So you work with many organizations undergoing digital transformation. What role does observability play, and where does Dynatrace fit in?
When you're going through a digital transformation, most likely you're going to change a lot of your digital estates. You're building new applications, you're connecting maybe a new mobile app or a new service to your backend systems, connected to your AI system. So the first thing you need to do, where observability helps you, is really understand your entire IT estate. What are you running? Which components or which applications are talking to others? What's working, what's not working? Because you're obviously going through this change, you're going to iterate over this environment and keep evolving it. That's one role that observability is playing. And once those services are then live and users are using it, observability helps you to optimize the user experience. Think just 2 days ago, when there was the British Airways outage, how do you feel at an airport if the service is not great? So observability does both. It actually helps you to understand how your system is working and how the individual pieces play together. And it also helps you to understand how users feel about your service, whether it's working for them. And then finally, if something goes wrong, and every now and then obviously something does actually go wrong, it helps you to find the issue quite quickly and helps you to also to resolve the root cause, or what the actual problem might be. Because as you can imagine, in complex landscapes, there's thousands, even millions of components. And observability and Dynatrace also helps you to pinpoint exactly where the problem is.
Now, Dynatrace has been working with AI for more than a decade. As the discussion regarding the cost of generative AI investments and ROI heats up, tell me, how is Dynatrace helping organizations to get the most value out of AI?
So we have a dedicated solution that we call AI observability. So we just talked about observability. Now we're extending it just to the realm of AI, so helping understand how much.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. As our coverage from the Swiss Alps continues, one of the most talked about topics at the World Economic Forum is artificial intelligence. It includes advancements in AI agents. And the CEO of Imbue, an AI research company that builds agents, join me with more on news emerging from the forum. Let's take a look.
Oh, this year, everything is about agents. Every enterprise CEO is talking about, how do I use agents in my business? How is it going to transform my company? Is it going to replace my workforce? Am I going to be able to cut costs? And there are others reacting saying, I'm concerned about automating the workforce. I'm concerned about displacing jobs. And that's really dominating the conversation this year. It's all about AI agents.
I think our viewers would be interested to know how you would categorize an agent, and I ask that because the World Economic Forum having a panel called The Dawn of Artificial General Intelligence. So to that end, how do agents fit in?
Yeah, at the moment, most people think of general agents as these personal assistants. You delegate a task to it, maybe it books travel for you, something like that. However, what we've learned at Imbue over the years is that agents like that are actually a little bit hard to use. All of us, we struggle to delegate, and it requires a lot of trust for an agent to autonomously do something on our behalf. And so at Imbue, what we realized is agents are just pieces of software on your computer, and they interact with your computer, interface with it by writing software code, and they interact with you by talking to you or showing you something. And so really agents are this higher level language for programming your computer. And that is actually a maybe more empowering view of general agents that changes the dialogue around how some folks are concerned about replacement and automation. This is a view of agents that lets everyone create software. And so people can create for themselves a new job, a way to change a workflow that they don't like, et cetera.
And a newly released white paper does aim to provide manufacturers, that specific industry, with a comprehensive roadmap for embracing these AI agents. Is this something that can become near autonomous?
Yeah, there's actually some very interesting companies at Davos at the forum this year working on robotics for manufacturing. And one of the most interesting ones, they called Robust AI. They talk about having robots in the factory that you actually work with humans, that as a person you can easily move around, and that looks like a shelf. And so this is, again, about not replacing people, but rather augmenting people. How can we use AI agents to empower people?
President Trump recently announcing a $500 billion plus investment in partnership with tech companies on building out AI infrastructure. Those companies being OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. What does that mean for this industry and for the capabilities?
Yeah, so one of the things that's happening right now is this massive centralization in the industry. You can see with that investment really going toward these large enterprises. And this is an industry where you get benefits to scale, like you train larger models, you get more capabilities. However, I don't think we all want to live in a future where AI is centrally controlled. And so I think one of the most important things in this industry is to figure out how do you decentralize the power of AI and make AI into something that's a common good, like Wikipedia, that everyone can use and have access to and change. And AI is trained on all of our data on the internet. We created it, and so it should belong to all of us.
Kanjun, we know that your company, Imbue, is backed by major players in the artificial intelligence space. Certainly the leader, that being NVIDIA, also the Amazon Alexa Fund, Eric Schmidt, and others. How do you see AI evolving, and how are you working with these companies in steering the future of it?
That's a great question. In terms of how AI is evolving, this year, we're going to see some agents that are task specific that help you. And really the way to think about it is it's just smarter software. Your app that couldn't check your email for spam before, maybe we'll be able to check what is spam and what's not. And that's what's going to happen this year. I don't think we're going to see massive transformations. However, in the coming years, we should expect capabilities to increase quite quickly. Your second question was?
In terms of where you see the future going, Kanjun, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Of course, the World Economic Forum is underway. We have several more days left. What else do you anticipate when it comes to the conversation and news around AI that could come out of this forum?
It's a great question. In terms of the news that's going to come out of this forum, I suspect that there's going to be quite a bit of conversation around AI agents and how there's not that much adoption yet, but different companies and enterprises are talking about how to make use of them.
Kanjun Q, we so appreciate you joining us, of course, from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Her company, a private company, valued at about $1 billion. Kanjan, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been so great, of course, to hear about news coming out of the World Economic Forum this year, still underway, in fact, in Davos, Switzerland. Well, I do want to bring in my colleague, Trinity Chavez, with a bit more specifically in the crypto space. Hi, Trinity.
Hey, Kristen, that's right. Crypto is making huge headlines once again. Bitcoin has surged past $105,000, and meme coins are outperforming the market. Meantime, blockchain firm Movement Labs is targeting a massive $3 billion valuation in its latest funding round. Joining me now to talk more about this exciting moment in crypto and the rise of political meme coins is Rushi Manshi, co-founder of Movement Labs. Rushi, it's great to have you here.
It's great to have you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
So thank you for joining us on the show. Congratulations on your latest funding round. Now you're valued at around $3 billion. What would you attribute this momentum to, and how are you going to continue this success?
I think what we're seeing across the board is a complete 0 to 180 in crypto regulation, crypto adoption, and crypto usage. Around 4 years ago, we were still struggling, hey, would there be regulation from SEC? Crypto founders, especially in the United States, were struggling to even understand, is crypto going to exist in 6-7 years under the SEC back then? Mm-hmm. And today what we're seeing is a total 180 in policy. We're seeing a pro-crypto SEC putting together a task force. We're seeing Bitcoin hit all-time highs. And overall, American-made founders are reaching all-time highs in crypto, and we're just proud to be one of the few incumbents at Movement.
But how are you staying innovative? How are you really approaching this new frontier? How are you positioning yourself as a business for, now the new administration as it's taking shape?
I think there's a few things. I think that firstly, we're really focused on the infrastructure level. So across the board, what we're seeing is the need for high throughput and highly scalable infrastructure. For example, President Trump recently launched a Solana token, surged trading volumes on all exchanges, all decentralized exchanges, and Solana itself had uptime issues. What Movement is working on is using a high throughput execution layer, a high throughput blockchain. So in these future high network activity, usage activities happen, we can have infrastructure that can truly scale. And that's Movement's whole core vision, being at the forefront of innovation while supporting any future incumbents in policy or government action.
What are you eyeing for 2025? We have about 30 seconds left.
I think we're trying to reach all-time highs for crypto and adoption, and we want America to be the home for crypto adoption and innovation, and Movement's going to be at the forefront of that.
Well, we're definitely going to be following this, for the months and potentially years to come. Thank you so much again. That is Rushi Manshi, co-founder of Movement Labs.
Thank you, Trini.
Now, as we get ready to wrap up the show, I do want to bring my colleague, Kristen Scholler, back in as we say goodbye. I mean, it's been an action-packed show with all of our coverage with the news headlines coming out of the World Economic Forum, cryptocurrency, obviously, and markets as we cover here every day, Kristen.
Trinity, that's exactly right. And as we've been on the air here, of course, the market has been open for trade within striking distance of all-time highs. So 2 years of a bull market showing that it still has legs in it. Those are the indications that we see, of course, based on fundamentals like economic data and earnings, which have been coming in better than expected.
No, absolutely, Kristen. We're going to continue to follow, obviously, all of the market movements here on the show as we do every day. And, I know we have, more IPOs coming up that's set to take place here at the New York Stock Exchange, including one tomorrow, which we will also be covering. So a lot to look out for. And as we're gearing up for next week, too.
Yes, indeed. Well, with that note, Trinity, as the IPO market opens up in 2025, we like to see that. We'll be covering that tomorrow, of course, with Venture Global anticipated to make its debut. And that's going to do it for today's show. But we'll see you back here tomorrow morning on Friday. For Trinity, Kristen, everyone on the team, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
for being innovators in the market. Thank you for all you do every day to show the world what best in class truly means.
We are incredibly proud to join the ranks of other highly successful companies who partnered with this legendary institution.
What a time to be here. I am so proud of what we're doing.
This is a huge milestone for our business. There's a lot of people responsible for getting to where we are today.
We have a role to play in bridging the gaps that exist today between us.
Not many people get to do something big in this world, and we get to do something truly special.
This is such a wonderful place to both look back and look forward. I'm so optimistic about what lies ahead. It has been a privilege to be with you.